Okay, let's get started. Welcome to Is Your Loved One Safe in a Nursing Home? I'm Jim Cunningham. I have Prescott Cole from the California Advocates for Nursing Home Reform joining us today. We're going to go through really kind of a conversation on some of the issues you need to be thinking about if you have a loved one who is in a nursing home. This would include a residential care facility, a board and care, and I use that term loosely, and as well as their finances. So not only their person, but their finances. And Prescott, I'm really glad you can join us here today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what CANHR is? CANHR.org. Yeah.
CANHR, yeah. California Advocates for Nursing Home Reform. And it's been in existence for about 38 years. I've been there 26 of those 38. And basically what we are, we're a nonprofit. We're a consumers' rights advocate group that focuses on issues of long-term care, specifically issues around nursing homes or residential care facilities. We help people navigate the system. I'm an attorney. I'm one of, I think, 4 attorneys there that do the kind of work that would be helpful for individuals that are trying to figure out what to do about a loved one that needs long-term care, or if they're in long-term care, there's a problem, what do you do? We go all the way from helping people understand the long-term care system, which is how do you pay for a nursing home, which would be through the Medi-Cal program, or we know about long-term care insurance. We give advice about what one might need to do. We have a lawyer referral service, so should somebody need to contact a lawyer that is able to handle issues that are related to government benefits, such as Medi-Cal or Veterans Aid and Attendance Program, we can direct the individual to somebody that has some expertise in that. Also, and unfortunately, if somebody has been abused or neglected, we have lawyers that we can connect individuals with that have experience dealing with facilities. The laws to protect the elder are not great in California, and they're really built around protecting the facilities for a variety of different reasons. So with that in mind, if you ever need a lawyer that needs to do something for you, make sure that they have experience in the area that you're looking for help in. Otherwise, your money's not going to be well spent.
Yeah, boy, unfortunately, we see that. By the way, I'm so glad you mentioned that because this is a disclaimer. I'm a lawyer. Prescott's a lawyer. This is not legal advice. Don't watch this video and go out and do a bunch of stuff based on this video. Seek out competent expert legal advice. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you're watching this live, go to our YouTube channel and go ahead and subscribe. There are a lot of changes coming out this year with the Biden tax plan, the Biden tax hikes that are anticipated. So if you care about paying as little tax as possible, I encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube page. Prescott, you're a lawyer, you're a senior staff attorney, 25 years experience. You've seen it all, right?
But before we just advance a little bit more,
Yeah.
I want to say with our organization, we don't charge anything for our services. We have a group in the advocate unit. So if you have any questions that you want to talk to somebody live and direct, you would call our 800 number. Also on our website, we have all these fact sheets, let you know everything that we think that you need to know. And if you don't find what you need to know, contact somebody from the advocate unit and they'll do the research to try to get you the answer. We're about connecting.
You guys are a great resource. I know in our firm, we use you, we talk with you guys a lot. So here are the kind of things, there's not really a whole lot of structure to this. It's more of a conversation, and we're going to go through some bullet points to talk about. But protecting the person, protecting obviously the elder that's in there, protecting their finances, right? So sometimes people don't have finances to protect, but a lot of times they do have that income that comes in every month. And that's part of what's called the share of cost. And so that's really important to pay attention to. We'll go through some common fact patterns, some signs that your loved one is at risk. That's important. So there's some warning signs and what you can do about it. And unfortunately, what you cannot do about it, right? So sometimes you just can't do much.
Right. And I'd say that a starting point for everybody is everybody's at risk and everybody's a target, regardless of what you have. And you work your way up from there. Always remember, you have to advocate for yourself. Hopefully you can find other people to advocate for you. but there is an ocean of problems out there. This is not about trying to scare you. It's just trying to get you alert to what you need to do to greatly and to enjoy everything you can in life. So this is a very positive scare for you.
Yeah. And so what's happened now, I mean, we're doing this in March of 2021. Hopefully we're nearing, I don't know if it's the end of the beginning or the beginning of the end of COVID or something like that, but people are starting to get vaccinated. People are, things are looking up. We're going to get through this. But if you have a loved one in an assisted living facility, and I will tell you, my mother-in-law passed away about a year ago in an assisted living facility just after COVID broke. My father-in-law is in a residential care facility now, a 6-bed facility. And it is kind of difficult to visit people because of these COVID restrictions, right? I mean, these elders are isolated. So Prescott, what do people do? I mean, we're going to the facility and meeting through glass
Right.
and talking on the phone. When's that going to end? And what does the visitation look like? If you can put some color on that for us.
Yeah, right. Well, the color is part of it. I mean, we have these different tiers: the red, the orange, the yellow. So each county kind of operates on their own. There is some California regulations around that. To get very, very, very specific, you can go on the Canner website. We have a whole section dedicated to information about the COVID. But basically it's this, like for virtual visitations, phone calls, video chats, they have to set that up for you. Outdoor visitation, you can be outside. They have to provide you an area where you can see the individual. And then there is some visitations inside. If there's enough space, you can be 6 feet apart. Coming up, people that have been vaccinated with the 2 vaccinations, things aren't really gelled yet. They're moving towards a resolution on trying to get, everybody wants to get more people in there. Certainly from the first frightening days, we made a lot of progress. But for very specific questions that you might have, we have this wonderful information on our website that'll get you what you need to know. If not, one of the Canner advocates, that's what their job's all about.
And then, if somebody's in, sometimes people private pay, and the average price of a skilled nursing care facility in California is about $10,000 a month. Typically, you pay out of your own pocket until you're poor, and that has a different sliding definition. If you're single, it's a couple $1,000s. If you're married, you can have 130,000 and a house, and it's kind of it. And a lot of this information's on Medi-Cal. But something to understand is, let's say somebody is poor. They don't have any money and they're on Medi-Cal. So your mom's in a nursing home on Medi-Cal. And if she gets $2,000 a month in Social Security, she's going to have to pay $1,965 to the facility, and the state of California picks up the balance. That $1,965 is called the share of cost. So it's what mom has to pay to be in the nursing home. But what happens? What are some problems you see, Prescott? Like, what if mom's not getting adequate treatment? And if my mom's not getting adequate treatment, I'm going to be like, well, wait a minute. I'm not going to pay you the share of costs. I'm going to withhold that $1,965 as some type of hammer to the facility to improve mom's care. Can you do that or not?
Yeah, that doesn't work. And you're putting the resident at risk of being kicked out of the facility. Bad things happen in the facility. They're not getting the kind of care that you think they should get. And so some people think, why would I, pay any money, or why should mom or dad or Uncle Al pay any money when they're not getting the kind of care? I will withhold the money. Now, a lot of people who are in the facilities with lost capacity will have a paid representative. They are to channel to like the Social Security check, turn that over to the facility as, again, like Jim said, share of cost. By the way, stepping back a little bit to kind of put the Medi-Cal in perspective, Medi-Cal's 3 things. It's your assets, you either qualify or you don't. Then it's the income. They look at your income, and then there's paying Medi-Cal back when the Medi-Cal recipient passes away. However, the share of cost, I think you can really understand what it is. What happens when you go into a facility, the facility is going to accept a Medi-Cal resident. They make a deal. The facility makes a deal with the government, not the resident. So the government, okay, I will accept the Medi-Cal resident. And in turn, the government says, okay, we will guarantee that you will receive X amount of dollars per day for that bed. and it's all facility specific. Some get $215 to $230 a day, whatever it is. But that's the cost of the bed. Go to a motel, the bed's going to be, X amount of dollars, the room rent. So here, if it's $200 a day, that's what is guaranteed because they're taking a Medi-Cal resident. So what happens is, who pays first? The resident. And the resident alone uses residents' money to pay that $200 cost of the bed day by day by day until they run out of money. So if resident has, let's say, $2,000 income, first day of the month, $200 a day by day by day. On the 10th day, they run out of money. So Medi-Cal comes in and pays $200 a day. So what the resident did was paid their share of cost. They pay first. And after they run out of money, Medi-Cal pays. So when you have a family member that says, Uncle Al did not get the kind of care Uncle Al was supposed to get, I'm not giving them the $2,000. Can't do that. That goes to the facility. You take your issues with the public health, or you get a lawyer, or whatever you do, but they have to get it. Years ago, my dad actually was on a case, he was on a jury, where a truck driver was owed a lot of money by a farmer. And he took this load of, I think it was apples, to the market and sold them and kept all the money because that's what he was owed. And so then there was a criminal trial, the truck driver, because he stole the property and he got, unfortunately, that's how it is. Same with a nursing home. Pick up your other issues separately, that money has to go. Because, if you don't pay, then the resident is being kicked out of the facility.
Yeah, you can get kicked out unless the facility's going out of business or the individual doesn't need the care or the individual needs care they can't provide. But this basically, it's a more common occurrence. And we're just kind of going through the common things. It's a more common occurrence where people just don't pay because they're not happy with the service. So they gave dad a cold cheeseburger. I'm not going to pay the $2,000 a month. And that doesn't work that way.
Yeah. And there's the other part of it too. Jimmy's getting, not Jimmy, sorry. Well, they, Bob, doesn't have a job, and here comes dad's check, and he's the pay representative, and he decides to keep the check. Okay, the facility will actually go to the district attorney, and the district attorney will say, we're not your debt collector, so take it up yourself. And it becomes a civil matter, whatnot, but that's not Bob's money. That's the facility's money.
So Medicare and Medi-Cal, and I'm going to put some context in this. Let's say dad falls and breaks his hip. This is actually my father-in-law. Falls and breaks his hip, goes to the hospital, gets a hip replacement surgery. He's there 3 or 4 days. And that's $10,000 a day or whatever it is. And then you're discharged, and we'll talk about a discharge planner. You're discharged to a Medicare rehab center. Now, the Medicare rehab center, Medicare has a maximum benefit of 100 days in a calendar year. And the Medicare reimbursements rates are very high. They can be $400 to $2,000 a day, okay, for rehab. And then when you stop getting better, when you stop improving, your level of care drops, and the amount the government's going to pay, Medicare stops paying, maybe Medi-Cal kicks in, or private pay at $200 a day or whatever it is. So you're going from $400 to $2,000 down to $200 a day. And if you have a 100-bed facility, Prescott, and you're in business, you want to fill it with as many $2,000 a day people and kick those $200 a day people out. And so if you've been through this with an elder, this is very frustrating because they go, dad was in the hospital for 3 or 4 days. He was in the rehab facility for 2 weeks. Now I got to move him again. This guy's demented. This is very disruptive for him, but this is how the system works. Now let's talk, Prescott, about, does that elder have the right to stay in that Medicare facility, even though they're trying to push him out the door?
The answer is yes. If they accept Medi-Cal, if they are certified for, if they accept Medi-Cal, they have to keep the individual facility. If the facility doesn't only pay in Medicare, then that's something different. But if they say to the government, Medi-Cal residents, somebody comes in on Medicare and then goes, maybe pays private pay for a while or not, and goes on to Medi-Cal, they stay in the facility. So what's going on in the facilities, this is the movement. This is bad to know too, that of the people that go into a nursing home, 70% will be discharged by 90 days. most of this is transitory.
Mhm.
People like Jim's father-in-law, they break their hip, they might have had a heart attack, some event happened where they go to a hospital, they need acute care, need ICU. What's going on for paying? The hospital is getting paid by Medicare. And this is, as we know, your checks. And then so when it comes time for your big operation, you are covered. Medicare covers that. So what ends up happening after the crisis passes, you're out of you're sneezing, you're too ill or incapacitated to go home, and Medicare keeps paying because they went to give you therapies, but as Jim mentioned, it's too expensive to stay in the hospital. So what they do is they move you to another establishment. And that establishment we call a nursing home, but in the trade, it's called a skilled nursing facility. Actually, a nursing facility is only a nursing facility. The S, skilled in SNF, means they're certified for Medicare. So what happens is after the or the heart operation, you need some therapy, can't stay in the hospital, too expensive. The nursing home skilled part will accept you. Medicare pays for that. Medicare is paying for that extra care, the therapies, whatnot. And that's where it's going to be $400 to $2,000 a day. It depends on resources you need. So that's on. And as soon as you don't have those therapies, need them anymore, of course, as Jim said, the maximum 100 days, then Medicare stops paying. So the facility wants that bed open to take another hospital person and put them in that bed. So they're going to tell you, we really like, Al. Al's a great guy, wonderful, but, we only take Medicare people, and now he's moved off to Medicare. So we're not a really long-term care facility. We're long-term, whatever nonsense. They are breaking the law, because if they take Medi-Cal, the last thing they want is to take that bed that was making $1,000 a day and suddenly knock it down to $200 a day. They want out of the facility. They will lie, they will sure, and they will do whatever they can to discharge the individual out of the facility. That's
Well, tell us how you really feel, Prescott, on that one.
all right, because I just hit it. How it's not mostly about money for these places. It's all about money.
Yeah, and so this is something, and one of the reasons where I'm even doing this and asked you to speak is I went through this with my in-laws, and I see how people get pushed around, and they were trying to push me around, and then you start doubting yourself. And I've been practicing this area for 25 years, but I will tell you, Canner is a fantastic resource. If you want to know if a place that is a facility accepts Medi-Cal or not, there is a way to find out. It's public information. You can go. And we have a slide on that coming up. So
Yeah.
long-term care insurance, I will say that there's an old way of doing long-term care insurance and a new way. The old way was use it or lose it. And many of our clients that are PERS employees, which is California Public Employees Retirement System, you might have had a union arrangement, and you're paying monthly $300, $400, $500 a month. What they recently did is they said, oh my goodness, boy, did we make a bad deal. We had way too many generous benefits. So we're either going to give you a real haircut on your benefit, or we're going to raise your premium 85%. And that really did not sit well with everyone. I got to tell you, because I've talked to the clients and they're like, this is ridiculous. I was locked in. I thought I had a guarantee, and now they pull it out from under the rug for me. Now that's the old way of doing it. There is a new way of doing long-term care insurance policy where you go to a life insurance company, you buy a policy of life insurance with a long-term care rider. That's where you write a check for $50,000 or $100,000, and you get $150,000 or $300,000 in immediate long-term care benefit. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the waiting period, because this is really important. And you mentioned this a couple minutes ago, Prescott. Many people are discharged, 70% discharged within 90 days, 80% discharged within 120 days. So when you hear the long-term care insurance industry say, oh, they start throwing out statistics, bear in mind, though, that 20% of the people are not discharged after 120 days, right? How do you count deaths in here, by the way? Is that part of that, or are the deaths the 30 of the 20?
All right, so if you look at this information comes from OSHPD, which is the Office of Statewide Health Planning and Development. And why this is an important slide, because if you're talking about long-term care insurance, there's certain things you really need to avoid. It's not like your medical health insurance where you have a deductible. After the deductible is gone, they pay everything. What the long-term care insurance policy does when it starts paying, it pays a certain amount of dollars per day, typically $150 a day. So if the facility needs $300 a day, it's helpful that they get $150 a day, but the policy has to come up with the other amount of money in order to be in the facility. So unless you have enough money to cover the difference between what the policy pays and private pay, you have nothing. You have it. You will not use it. In fact, the GAO, Government Accountability Office, did a few years back. They found that with long-term care insurance, something like 12% of the people that had it actually qualified for Medicaid, which is the program in California. We changed the name from Medicaid to Medi-Cal, but they're not covered by the private pay because they can't afford private pay, and they qualify for Medi-Cal. So that's a complete swindle there. But you ask about the stat. Insurance people are trying to sell the products. They'll say that 50% of all seniors will go into the nursing home. Average stay is 2.5 years, which is true with some of the stats, but it's not reality because, we all know seniors. I'm a senior. But we don't know that 50% of the people that we know are seniors in nursing homes or have been in nursing homes. Where do they get that statistic? We'll put that aside for a second. But then they'll say the average stay is 2.5 years. So that's very scary, and that sells insurance. But the reality is you take 100 people on January 1st, and then on December 31st, of those 100 people, there'll be 5 left in the facility. What happened to the others? 70% get discharged by 90 days. At 120 days, 80% are gone, and then it just trickles out from there. But if you look at the nursing home, yeah, some people, the people that have been, as Jim pointed out, some people stay a long time. They stick in the bed. So when you walk into the facility, the census, that's the number of people in the facility, you'll look at it and you'll say, oh yeah, the average, they've been here as an average of 2.5 years. But that's not the general population.
Oh, so what you're saying is the average stay of someone who stays more than a year is 2.5 years, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right.
All right. And so, but the thing about long-term care insurance, that big stat that says 70% of the people will be discharged by 90 days means that the insurance, that's what's called an exclusionary period. The insurance will not pay a nickel at all until you've been in there for at least 90 days.
Yeah, so I would say if you're watching this video or you're watching for somebody else and they have a long-term care policy, a long-term care insurance policy, number one, find it. Because if you're watching this video for a loved one, you may need that regardless of whether there's a 90-day waiting period or not. You need to be able to identify it because you're going to need to make a claim and you're going to need some basic information. But secondly, open it up and read it. See what it says. Does it have a 90-day waiting period? Some of the older ones, you actually had to go into a facility to get the $150 a day. More modern policies, you don't have to go to a facility. You can be at home. So there are a lot of different variations and iterations.
Yeah. Wait. Because on the in-home health policies, that 90 days turns around. That you will need in-home health care for a minimum of 90 days, which means they don't pay a nickel until you've got that to show that. For instance, if you come out of the hospital for a stomach operation and you need a month and a half of in-home health care, they'll pay nothing. That's not 90 days. What's that 90-day exclusionary period? Both sides of it.
Yeah, very important. Doctor's certificate. Warren Buffett has 2 policies of long-term care insurance, and he's a rich guy. But most people, I don't think most people buy long-term care insurance in my experience. It's not like people buying auto insurance or homeowners. I think a small number of people buy it.
Yeah, and it's been underwritten. I mean, Cal to have 4 or 5 insurers. We only have 1 now, Genworth. And you have to know that what they're doing in order to make those policies continue, they continue to raise the premiums. They can't raise the premium of an individual. It's by the age, by the class. These policies are very, very expensive. Mm-hmm. And remember always this, if you have a policy, you're going to have a cash reserve to pay anyway as a supplement. And if you're upper middle class, You have enough money, put it all aside, that'll be your money. And the off chance you don't never use it, it goes for your inheritance. These premiums from $4,000 up to $8,000 a year. So
Yeah, and that's really important. Prescott, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think some things that a lot of people don't put enough thought into the overall plan of, hey, if I end up needing in-home healthcare, which some of my clients are paying $20,000, $30,000 a month. They're rich people. They just have an in-home healthcare. I mean, this can be very expensive, but it's important to have like an order of liquidation, and it's important to be mindful of the taxes, because if you choose to sell a rental property and live off that money, that may be less tax efficient than another type of spending structure. So it's very important to pay attention to that, because really it's kind of, imagine if you knew that you were going to take a trip of an indeterminate distance in miles in a car. You would want to fill up your gas tank. You don't want to start off with a quarter tank. If you don't know how long you're going to go, and you can think of this cash as kind of like gas in the tank, because you or your loved one's going to need this care for a long period of time. And so you want to maximize the available reserves. So let's talk about, where did nursing homes come from? I thought this was really interesting. Prescott, when we were preparing for today's presentation, I really never even thought about that. But I do notice that a lot of them were built in the 80s. Like there was a real boom of construction in the 80s. Just give us a little bit of background on this.
Well, nursing homes used to be classically very, very operations. Mom was a nurse, dad was a handyman. There might have been, a fraternal organization or a church or, some religious entity that would have basically something set up. Also remember, in the old days too, it was easy. You got sick, you were dead in 2 days.
Yeah.
Expecting, one, was 47 years of age. So we don't have the aging situation that we do today. So around the 60s and the 70s, the government started to look at the demographics. We're aging more, longer, the longevity. And then what do we do with the system here? Now, they could have gone to the Medicare program. Medicare is, again, as you know, you've been working, they take the money out, and that's your health care should you have a heart attack or, brain surgery, long operation, whatever the heck. That's covered by Medicare. Medicare should also cover long-term care. Why doesn't it? Why doesn't it cover Parkinson's, MS, or dementia? It doesn't cover it. And that was a policy decision by the government. They should have said Medicare continues, and that's what we need to do. So it's one of the developments. This is the 1980s. They said we have to put money in this area. And so they brought Poor People's Program, and that's what the Medi-Cal or the Medicaid program was for, designed as a safety net for the people that were basically, very low wealth or impoverished individuals. They have to have health care. So that's the program. Why did they use that program instead of the Medicare program? Medicare is it has the Medicare Trust Fund, federal government. They handle all. For the federal government, why don't we look at, I'm thinking, I'm federal government, why don't we look at the other program where the states have to match 50-50? That's the Medicaid program. So if California needs $10 billion for the nursing, get $5 billion from California, federal government only has to put up $5 billion. And another benefit to the federal government is it's up to the states to administer the Medicaid or the California Medi-Cal program. Oh, and another benefit is when you die and you got any money from Medicaid or Medi-Cal, you're going to have to reimburse. There's a recovery program for that. Not so with Medicare. I mean, I remember classically, I had a case that came in where a woman's father was in a facility for a number of years, had a heart attack, went to the hospital and came back. And then he was in the facility for a little bit longer and died. Okay, there was a Medi-Cal recovery for him being in the nursing home, no care recovery for his operation, which was very expensive for his heart operation. That's the inequity of the system there. And I wanted to bring that up. It's an important part of what our advocacy is. People say, oh my gosh, you're trying to get people on Medi-Cal. You're cheating the state. I'm turning it around. The state, it's the state that came up with the system, and if somebody's been putting money in through their work life, 50 years, and then they end up with Alzheimer's, isn't it fair that Medicare pays nothing? Isn't that fair? No, so That's my
Yeah,
attitude about the
it,
Med-Cal program.
it's interesting, and this is why, this is in here, because it's an interesting background. It's almost like there wasn't sufficient long-term thinking and kind of logically playing all of this out, because it's unfair. If you get Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, you don't have any control over that. It's just going to happen, right? And in many,
Certainly, and
heart dis-
against that,
yeah,
if you got lung cancer because you've been smoking since you were 13,
yeah,
you know, there might be
yeah,
a
but it was healthy.
responsibility in
Hey,
there.
but smoking was healthy when the person was 13,
I
right?
forgot.
Right, it was healthy. Japan has a long-term care payroll tax. I'm not advocating more taxes, but this is how some countries deal with it.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
in fact, that was, I had a great experience. I went to Japan. We got a tour of the nursing homes. That was fun. And, but they do have that. And that's a program that we can definitely have in the United States. They toy with that every now and then. In fact, Ted Kennedy had the Class Act that was going to happen
mm.
and it passed, but there's no funding. But, and now the state of is looking at what do we do long-term care. They want something else going, but they just have they just can't get a handle on it. That
So
would be a very simple fix. Just
yeah,
add it.
and then turning to some basic, these are extremely fundamental foundational documents. You could consider adding a living trust in there, but it's very important that even somebody who has no money, and I think a lot of people are under the mistaken belief is like, look, I'm putting my mom into assisted living. She has no money. I'm paying all her bills. I don't really need anything because I'm paying for everything anyway. That's not true. Okay. Number one, everyone needs a will, because you're going to have something at when you pass away. And a lot of times you're not going to be, and this is very important, you're not going to be able to act on behalf of a deceased person unless your name appears in a will. So at least it gives you a peg to hang your hat on. Okay. Like on the wall. All right. Very important. Durable power of attorney for property. What that says is, hey, I'm going to name Prescott. If I stroke out, Prescott, you're going to handle all my personal affairs. I haven't named you. Don't worry. So mom names the son on a durable power of attorney. These are pretty, I don't want to say basic forms for lawyers, but these are very conventional forms that many, many lawyers can do, but we'll talk about why you may want an expert. And then the durable power of attorney for healthcare. I think of all of those, probably the healthcare power of attorney is frankly the most important, because if your elder cannot consent to you speaking with the medical professionals, guess what? It's not going to happen. You then have to go to a conservatorship. The conservatorship route, the court costs and investigator fees alone are about $5,000 on a conservatorship, plus attorney's fees. So it's about $15,000 to set up a conservatorship. And in many instances, the durable power of attorney for property and healthcare takes away the need for a conservatorship. Okay, so it's very important if you're caring for an elder and your elder is capacitated. What I mean by that is they're not incapacitated, all right? Can you, and then also gifting authority. What is gifting authority? It's the power for maybe a child to gift mom's assets to the child. And, it's not to rip mom off, but many times you have to gift, you have to use gifting in order to qualify for public assistance benefits. It is not gaming the system. It's sanctioned. It's permitted under state and federal law in California. This is what I would call a non-standard power. So if you just go out to like a stationery store, actually, you'd probably download it from the internet. Go to some online,
Yeah.
right? Gifting is a non-standard power that I've never seen in pre-printed forms or online forms. So it's typically coming from a sophisticated lawyer's and expert lawyer's office. I want you to talk about two things, Prescott. I want you to talk about what an ombudsman is and what is this reference here, do not consent to arbitration.
Okay.
Can you talk about those two things?
Well, the ombudsman program is set up. An ombudsman actually it's a Scandinavian word for, I think, friend or arbitrator or something. And what they do is, they're there to be sort of an advocate for the individual who's the resident. They can't make any decisions for them. They can take whatever is the problem that they're having to the administration and try to open up and work it out. Know the laws, they know the regulations, they have the right to look into the medical records. And if they see abuse and neglect, they are mandated reporters to, this is kind of a quirky thing, to law enforcement but they need the consent of the resident before they can make these reports. And they have no police power. That's what you understand. They're there to look and to really try to help, but they do track what's going on. So a good consumer would contact the ombudsman to find out what's going on in the facility. And if there's problems that the individual have, they would go with the ombudsman. The ombudsman are really good with working to address the issue. Problems happen when the family members see what's happening and they try to address the issues. The staff gets very defensive. The administration gets very upset. When people get very accelerated, the staff is going to, along with the administrator, complain. Well, they might look for an injunction, and we don't want to go those routes. So work with the ombudsman if you're having trouble communicating with the facility. I mean, and they're there to really to help that communication. So in the arbitration agreement, facilities want you to sign arbitration agreements, which basically holds them harmless for whatever the heck you do in the way of abuse or neglect or whatever malfeasance that go on. Because what you do is you give up, when you go into arbitration, you give up the right to have a jury trial. You give up a right to go to court, and you're going to go to an arbitration. You need to know that the arbitration system is a closed environment. And all that information that you want the public to hear about bad things in the facility never leaves that environment. What you are is you're going before an arbitrator. The arbitrator is paid hundreds of dollars an hour to listen to both sides, defense and to the plaintiff, and make a decision that, yeah, you should pay $20,000, $100,000, whatever they make up a figure. That's the end of your case. It's over. The problem for people in facilities is this, or the relatives of people who died in facilities, is that we know there's a lot of attorneys out there, plaintiffs of attorneys, but there's less than 6 defense firms that do basically all of the defense work for, for these, there's 1,100 nursing homes in California. Bad things happen. That's a lot of business for the arbitrator. An arbitrator gets hired by both sides picking the arbitrator. So if I'm an attorney, I'm going to pick the arbitrator that's been very good to me. I'm not trying to give very high punitive awards. And so I'm at a better situation, better advantage than the plaintiff's attorney that might have like 5 or 6 cases a year. I have hundreds of cases. I can give more business, because I'm a defense attorney, to the arbitrator. Arbitrators, they're making a lot of money. They appreciate that. And there is a tendency to actually have a bias towards the defense.
Yeah, and arbitration, it does significantly increase the overall cost of litigation because you still have to do the same work as you do in a trial. I frankly see absolutely no reason, if you're the consumer, which means if you're caring for an elder or it's you or a spouse or something, there's no reason to sign the arbitration agreement. And something to be mindful of is when you're acting as trustee of a trust, the trustee is what's called a fiduciary. So the trustee of a trust only has authority over what's in the trust. A durable power of attorney is a significantly broader document. And a durable power of attorney is based on an agency theory, which is different than a fiduciary. An agent can bind the principal. What that means is if you're going to admit an elder into an assisted living facility or a skilled nursing care facility or whatever facility it is, typically it's not the elder signing the documents, it's the agent under the durable power of attorney. And that agent has the power to bind the elder to this arbitration agreement, even though it's a terrible idea. And the problem is you're signing a stack of documents like that, right? And they'll just slip in this arbitration agreement. Okay, sign here, 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 and here. And if you don't sign the arbitration agreement, that is not lawful. You don't have to sign it, is what I'm getting at. And if you choose not to sign it, they cannot deny you residency in the facility. So it's completely optional. They're not going to ask you to sign it if it doesn't benefit them, right? I mean, they're a business. They're not going to waste their time.
And a tip too, like when you're going in the facility, obviously you're not saying, I know you're going to abuse my father. Let's just put that aside so I don't do the arbitration agreement. You just You want to sign things. You want to get dad settled. You're in shock. You've been up for 32 hours. You know, you're just so grateful that the place is within 20 miles where you live. You're working on another. You're not thinking about a lawsuit down the line. How arbitration agreement do this? They put it in your packet and you say, you don't have to say, I'm not going to sign it. Just say, I'm not going to sign it now. I'm going to get to that later. You know, let's just get that in there. And they can't say, well, you can't. If they try to say you can't, they're breaking the law. If they can't, if they tell you you can't come in without signing the arbitration agreement. Also, that should be a big red flag for you too. Say, we get sued so much, you have to do it. No, just say, I'll get to that later, because you could always sign it later. You know, after your dad gets decubitus ulcers and falls off the Hoyer lift, you can sign an arbitration agreement if you want, but you don't have to sign it to get in.
So I think the single biggest cue to poor treatment, this is the number one thing. Okay. It's not so much the quality of the care, but it's the quantity of people giving the care. Okay. Inadequate staffing. Each, as Prescott, you said, each facility gets a per diem rate. What that's Latin for by the day. You get $200 a day per bed, or $300 a day, or whatever the number is. You're running a business and you're like, okay, we're going to serve 4-ounce patties on the hamburgers, not 6-ounce patties. And
Wait,
we're
wait,
going
wait,
to
wait.
serve
Let
8
me
French
throw-
fries,
let
not
me throw-
12. Yeah.
We did, this in a deposition, a large chain, all right, 3 meals, 2 snacks a day. What do you think their cost was? 3 meals, 2 snacks a day. What's their cost?
$10.
$3.15.
How much?
$3.15. You couldn't feed your dog on that.
For the whole, yeah. All right. So, but that's not where the cost is. 70% of cost is staffing. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a service business. The law mandates 3.5 hours per resident per day. That's the law. I don't know any facility that, none leaps to mind, that actually does 3.5. I think, don't they pretty much all come in under 3.5?
Well,
Prescott?
they posted and they work real hard to get there. We did actually, we looked at this facility candidate. They have 60 nursing homes. It's a chain, it's not here anymore. They were at the time of 3.2 hours per day. That was the rate. And they were coming at 3.1. How they figured this is you have 100 people in the, and then you have staff. They divide the staff hour by numbers of the people in the bed, and then by the staff hours. They have to come out with 3.2 hours per day. And they were coming in at 3.1, 3.0. Okay, Prescott Cole only got, 3.0 hours a day instead of 3.2. Big deal. Times 100, they get $15 an hour, basically, when you figure out what that wage was, when they figure in the LVN, CNAs, whatnot. So $15 an hour, and then 100 beds, and they're coming in at 0.1 or 0.2 below that, times 100. They were saving an amount of money with the 60 facilities that amounted to, in 1 year, $15 million that they got paid for. It was ghost staffing. So shaving that down, they've got it down to an art form. Because what happens when the Department of Public Health, that's the licensing agency, when they come in to see what's going on in the facility, they will find they can only look at 12 consecutive days of any part of the year, but that's all they look at is 12 days. And if they find the facility was understaffed, $2,000, that's it. They don't expand that. They don't look at more. It's a $2,000 fine. That's the end of it. They might have made $1 million by short staffing. So what's the incentive with that kind of oversight? Problems with the government oversight.
Yeah. And so you can go to Nursing Home Compare. That's on the Medicare website. A lot of this data is public data, but again, this is why I think it's really important. If you do have a loved one in an institution, you really do need to pay attention to it. And you really do need to go visit that person. And, sometimes people live far away.
Yeah.
And
Another
it's a lot harder. What do you suggest if someone's, if mom's in the Bay Area and the kid's in Florida, Bay Area, California, Northern California, and the kid lives in Miami, Florida? How am I going to monitor mom who's in the facility? What can I do?
Well, okay, California has a system. I mean, if you have money and you really want to hire, you have no family or friend or anybody else that would do that job, you could actually hire a professional fiduciary to go in and to monitor. It'd be quite expensive, but nevertheless, that does exist on a professional level. Hopefully you have, some kind of a connection, but if you, then, then you really don't. A couple other matters about staffing, because that's the key. When you go in, it's not only the numbers of staff people, try to find out how long are they staying there? If the turnover rate, some of these places, the turnover rate is over 100% a year, that's just the amount of people. They're not sticking with the job. There's a problem there. Also, look at the staffing morale. If they're being overworked, that's not going to be helpful to your loved one in there. And besides staffing, there's the smell test. You walk in, it looks like it's, not being well kept up, pandemonium, that's the indicator. This is a very tough thing, and the government's not doing a good job. It never is going to do a good job so long as we have the system set up the way it is. And we talked about the system got set up, and when they did it, they created basically a cross between the poorhouse and the hospital, and and a hospital. Basically, they just sort of added that together. And then who came in to run these facilities? Real estate. I mean, these are big operations. And if you look at the board of directors for most of these chains, invariably there's nobody on the board that has a healthcare background.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I'm thinking anecdotally of the facilities I've interacted with, and they're basically run by real estate guys and gals. They're not run by they're just not run by the healthcare industry. So I would recommend
they're not evil. These are not evil people that wake up and think, I'm going to run a prison camp. It's just they're coming from it from a a widget point of view.
Yeah, I think it's viewed as a housing issue more than it is a medical issue. So looking at Yelp reviews, Yelp's a mixed bag. I won't really get into whether Yelp is good or bad, but it is a good resource. And you mentioned this, Prescott, looking at the complaints on Yelp. And then also you can go to the Superior Court. Now, there are 58 counties in California. The Superior Court is basically the court. And you go to the courthouse and you can actually pull an index to look at lawsuits that have been filed by defendants. So if your mom's going to XYZ assisted living of, Marysville.
Shady Manor. If they're going to Shady Manor, what you do is you go to the Superior Court and you ask, it's called the defendant's cross index. Because anytime, Prescott Cole sues somebody, I'm the plaintiff. And so you can see everybody I sue by the plaintiff's index. You see a complaint, it's Prescott Cole versus, and I'm going to name everybody. I'm going to name the facility, all the people. So one of the defendants is and then the cross index will get you every time that there was a lawsuit against the facility, but the doctor or anybody. So, that's what you want to run, a defendant's cross index. And then you'll see if there's been a lawsuit. Even lawsuits about vendors who aren't getting paid. That's important to know. But certainly if it's, in the estate of Ms. Rebecca Klein.
So Canner is a great resource. Canner is fantastic. They've got fact sheets. I would really encourage you to check out the Canner's website, canner.org, CANHR.org. And the fact sheets, what those are kind of synopses of black letter law, but they're very helpful. I know I use those as a resource. I'll often, for some clients, print them out and hand them to them. I guess before COVID, now everything's by email.
No charge.
So, and it's free. That's great. It's a free resource. So aid and attendance, we've got a couple questions and I'm going to answer those in just a couple minutes, but aid and attendance is basically if you served in the military during a wartime or you're the surviving spouse of a wartime vet, there is a benefit that can be available for qualified veterans and their survivors. And this is if you need help with daily activities. It's a pretty rigorous application process. You need your DD-214, as in Delta Delta 214, which is your discharge paper, and the payments range between about $14,000 and $28,000 a year. My father-in-law receives aid and attendance benefits. He's a wartime vet. I went through that with my wife. You will run into something called the VSO, which is the Veteran Services Officer. In every county, there's at least one Veteran Services Officer, and they're a great resource, and they can help you through. Now, with veterans, it gets, somebody who is merely a veteran, I'm not it's a veteran who with no discharge with no disability. Many veterans were discharged with 10% disability. Many veterans, unfortunately, were exposed or potentially exposed to Agent Orange. And these are different classes. So if you have service-connected disability or you're already disabled, maybe 100% disabled, this is why you need to check when you're with your VSO, because they'll look at your DD-214, they'll look at your military record, and these guys and gals have served in the military typically, and now they're the veteran services officers. So they're very familiar with the benefit system. So they're a great resource. But that's something I wouldn't ignore. And that's the source of funds to effectively fill up that gas tank that I was talking about. And it's been very helpful in my own family and as well as for many other families. So what about kids lending to parents? This comes up a lot, Prescott. I'll meet with somebody and they'll say, I'm well off, but my brother and sister are not well off. And I want to pay $20,000 a month for my mom's care. And she has assets, but I want to get paid back. How do you track that? How does that work? Well, it looks like you might be frozen. So Canner has materials to help with that. And they have the home equity protection program. So if a kid lends to the parent, they can, you got to keep good records, but Canner really has a platform to help you with that. So that's yet another reason to reach out to Canner. And it's very important to characterize these payments as loans versus a gift, because if it's a gift, you're not going to get that money back. If it's a loan, then mom's estate can pay you back. So for those of you who are supporting parents, would be a little bitter if your siblings ended up with a good chunk of the money because you're paying for mom's care, that's something to consider. Reverse mortgage, in terms of, what does a reverse mortgage look like? This is people who are 62 years and older. What you do is you have a home with equity and you get a mortgage and you get a check. This is the typical situation. So you have a $500,000 house, you get a $100,000 reverse mortgage, you get $100,000 put into your bank account, and then everything's good. Now you are paying interest, maybe 4, 5, 6% a year. That interest accrues over time and builds. It kind of snowballs. So maybe when you pass away, there's a $200,000 balance. Well, when you pass away, you have to pay that back. Also, with reverse mortgage, something to be mindful of. If you move out of the house, you got to pay that back. And they'll ping you every 6 months or so and say, hey, have you gotten, are you still there? So some people, they'll say, well, my plan is to use my home equity to pay for my in-home care. Well, that's fine as long as you're at home. But something to understand is once you go to a facility, once you leave the home, then unfortunately that note becomes due and you'll have to deal with that at that time. So what do you do if you suspect your elder is being abused? Something to understand is the ombudsman has no enforcement ability, but is there to make suggestions. And as Prescott, I think we lost him, his connection. The ombudsman is a mandated reporter, meaning they have to report that to law enforcement, but beyond that, there's not a whole lot they can do. The district attorney gets involved typically when there's a crime, a sexual assault, which unfortunately happens, or physical assault in a nursing home. So where there's a chargeable crime, the district attorney gets involved. The attorney general is the attorney for the people of the state of California. So that's not county by county level. They will not pursue one-off events. They really want to look at systemic problems. So is there this problem going on with this large facility? I would not rely on the attorney general or the district attorney to enforce some of these abuses that we see in nursing homes. And these are, just kind of the day-to-day misery of being abused. And we had a question here from Lola, who said, my sister is in a skilled nursing care facility. They're short-staffed due to COVID. Even my sister says they can't take her outside for 15 minutes of sunshine or other services because they're short-staffed. What do you do? Well, I would reach out to the ombudsman. And that's one of the reasons the ombudsman exists, Lola. And also, you might want to figure out, well, hey, if you're short-staffed, can I just show up and take her out, right? Maybe just keep trying. But the first call would be definitely to the ombudsman. And Anonymous asks, son is taking care of mom in her own home. Can the home care be charged to Medicare or Medi-Cal? Unless you're on a waiver program, the answer is no. There's an in-home health support services, and this is a good opportunity to reach out to Canner. IHHS is in-home health support services. And what in-home health support services does is that permits you to um, get paid caring for an elder in a home environment. So that's IHHSS, in-home health support services. And oftentimes we see elders, just being basically neglected. Cold showers. I mean, this stuff happens. They're not feeding the person, or they're feeding them substandard food, leaving them in soiled clothes. So residents' rights violations, unfortunately, they can be multiple violations, hundreds of times, but the most the victim can recover is $500. That's it. So not a whole lot there. You're not going to get a private bar attorney excited on that one. If it rises to the level of an injury, that can be actionable with a private lawyer. But there, again, it's pretty egregious. The costs of lawsuit are expensive. This is just the costs. They can run $5,000 to $60,000 just for expert fees, and all the other costs associated. You have medical experts; those are very expensive experts to hire, and that's excluding attorney's fees. Most cases do settle if they're filed, or frankly, they go away. The plaintiff just kind of runs out of gas. Very few of these go to trial. As Prescott said, there are only 6 lawyers that represent 1,100 facilities across the state of California. So what does a plaintiff have to show? This is the person who's been aggrieved. This is the elder or the elder's family. They must show egregious, reckless conduct leading to catastrophic illness or injury. Pretty high bar. The burden is clear and convincing evidence, which is almost as high as a criminal standard. And the owners or operators knew or should have known that something was going on, or somehow ratified the conduct. All that means is these have to be really bad cases. And it's not that I'm discouraging you from pursuing a case, but I'm just giving you a dose of reality. These are very hard to prove. And you've got a big industry that gets sued a lot, and they're going to defend it tooth and nail. So anyone, again, if you're suspecting elders being abused in Lola, I mean, not taking your sister out to get sunshine and fresh air, it's kind of the drudgery of living in an assisted living facility. Is it rising to the level of something where a district attorney or the attorney general is going to get involved? I think probably not, but definitely the ombudsman. So that's something to take a look at. If there has been an injury, a serious injury, then contact a civil litigator. So that would be an elder abuse lawyer, and preferably an attorney who's done one of these before, because of there are 1,100 entities that own nursing homes in California and 6 firms that do the defense work. So these firms are very good at what they do. And the plaintiff's lawyer, if you're going to hire a lawyer, should have had experience in at least 2 cases. Because residents have comorbidities, and I didn't know what this word was before COVID. I'd never heard it or really thought about it. The medical workers, the workers are not miracle workers in these facilities. So a comorbidity, what is that? Well, that's diabetes, heart disease, some other type of high blood pressure, some other type of thing going on that contributes to the injury or death. And I will tell you, my daughter actually worked in an assisted living facility. She's in the sciences and in college. And during COVID, she's like, I need to get a job. So she worked at an assisted living facility, and it's really hard. And I got that firsthand from her. She formed an attachment with a lot of residents there, and but it was hard to see because the workers, they really are demoralized. And I would just say, be nice to them. Which I'm sure, if you want, you get, what do they say? You get some more with sugar than vinegar, but being nice is just a good approach. So there are 7,800 licensed residential care facilities in California. 7,000 of the 7,800 are 6-bed facilities. My father-in-law is in a 6-bed facility. So 800 are the big mega ones, but most of them are these smaller. And these are, this may be a home in your neighborhood and you don't really know that it's an assisted living facility, but it's a home in your neighborhood. So these are regulated by the Department of Social Services. The Department of Social Services covers adult daycare, child daycare, and nursing homes are related by the Department of Public Health. So 7,000 out of the 7,800 are not covered by the Department of Public Health. They're not regulated by an agency where it would make sense if that agency regulated them. So the point is that the Department of Social Services mandate is really extensive. You can have a maximum of 2 ADLs in a residential care facility. This is that home setting, but with a waiver, you can have more than 2. Okay, and I will tell you, the staffing does have minimal training. Hospice can be provided in the residential care facility, but hospice merely makes suggestions to staff. and then they typically leave. So they're a professional who shows up with the plan. And you really have to be clear about the services that you want provided to your loved one in this residential care facility. And the fines are minimal, but I really would encourage, visit as much as you can. It's good to stay connected with the elder. A lot of times people are isolated, but staying connected, you're going to see if there's something amiss or awry. If your elder is in the hospital, so if you're watching this and you go, oh my goodness, mom fell and broke her hip, and now they're starting to talk about discharging her, what's going on? Talk to the discharge planner. It's the job of the discharge planner to empty those hospital beds and get new paying people in there. Again, as Prescott said, the skilled nursing care facility is a nursing facility, and the S means it's certified to accept Medicare. Some hospitals have a skilled nursing care facility in the wing, but not always. But again, remember, you go from the hospital where it's 10,000 plus a day to the Medicare rehab facility where you get better, and that's $4,000 to $2,000 a day, but you might only be there a couple of weeks. And then you go to that lower level of care, that custodial care. But when Medicare runs out, the facilities do not want your elder to stay in there at the lower rate. Again, if they accept Medi-Cal, they cannot kick you out. If they do not accept Medi-Cal, they can kick you out. So something to pay attention to. I would suggest that you work with the discharge planner on getting your elder out of there. And what they do is they send an email blast and they say, okay, I got an 89-year-old male who needs to recovery, and they send out a blast. The first one who responds, discharge planner says, hey, that's a great place. Do some homework. You need to kind of, and again, we'll use an example. Prescott's cousin needs a nursing home, and Prescott seeks out information. Prescott checks with the ombudsman and says, hey, do you have any reports? The ombudsman has their own reporting facility, and they mandate abuse. And so that's a good resource to go to. Looks like we have no questions. We had the two that were asked, but I want to thank you for joining us here today. Please subscribe to our YouTube page, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.